Hello, everybody. Welcome to this SAP FINUG webinar together with Westernacher. My name is Aleksi Rustholkarhu, and I'm working as Executive Director in SAP FINUG. And today we have Mark and Aki here as Westernacher experts with today's sustainability topic. But before we let the experts on stage, let's go through some practicalities of the webinar, and also I will share some upcoming SAP FINUG events with you. You as attendees, you will get the recording and presentation materials afterwards, and you are muted for the webinar, but feel free to use the Q&A feature that is found on the Zoom toolbar to ask questions or comments at any time. So we will try to find a couple of minutes at the end to go through with your questions and comments. So please take advantage for that tool. Okay, those are the practicalities. Also, the year is not done yet on FINUG side, so we have something still coming up. Some Tech at Berlin news in Finnish in the 1st of December, and also Fujitsu partner webinar, some business data cloud, interesting stuff coming, and also a couple of work groups for our user members, HR and project management, still on December. So please check them out at our webpage or at our newsletters and read more and register if you are interested. Let's move on for our sustainability topic of the day. And at this point, I will give the stage to our experts, Mark and Aki. Please, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Aleksi, and welcome also from my side. Meanwhile, Mark is opening the slide deck. I'm also encouraging to use this webinar Q&A to post any comments or questions which we can then discuss during the event or at the end, or maybe follow up later. Yes. My name is Aki Pousar, and I'm leading the Westernacher operations here in Finland, based in Helsinki, and I will soon let my colleague Mark to introduce also himself. But first, just a quick look into Westernacher company profile. Sorry about some boring numbers, but in short, we are currently today roughly 1,200 consultants. This is last year's number. We are based in 25 countries today around the world. Our headquarters and roots are in Heidelberg, Germany. And we've been into consulting business since late 60s and currently fully focusing on SAP since mid-90s. Today's topic around sustainability is and also the how we are ourselves net zero in CO2. We are very proud of that, but of course we fully understand that it's fairly easy for us in professional services business, and that's why our ambition is mainly to support our customers to become zero as well, or negative as much as possible. And Mark will soon discuss more about this topic with you. Westernacher is best known in market about innovation in digital supply chain, including warehousing, EWM, transportation, manufacturing execution, supply chain planning on IBP or service parts planning, and analytics solutions. Most of our customers are very supply chain oriented and comes from the industries like discrete process, retail, wholesale, consumer goods. Yes, maybe one more slide. Just a quick promotion about our events. To come, Business Transformation Management, BTM, event in Dublin is next week. If you have colleagues in Ireland, it's this latest about Signavio and LeanIX. And here's a couple of webinars as well. Examples about our offering related to IBP, service parts planning, and this new SAP Logistics Management. We have also a webinar at FINUG next year, February. More events available on our website. Feel free to check the details and register. That's all from my side. Now to Mark. Stage is yours. Have fun. And guys, don't forget to post your questions in Q&A room.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Aki. And thank you to FINUG and Alexi for having me today, and for having the chance to discuss with you today about sustainability and how to establish a data foundation that supports that. Quick words to myself. Mark Mrosek. I'm the global lead at Westernacher for our sustainability services team. Actually having a background in finance controlling now since 5 years with Westernacher, and in that time focusing a lot on data and analytics in my other role, but also sustainability. And as you will see throughout this session today, is that these topics are very well connected and have a deep link. And to open this up, I would like to just have a glance what CSRD is about, because actually, for those of you that already are into CSRD, you will know that, of course, this is a big chunk where you actually need a lot of data and where you need to be able to have this data in a very qualitative way available. So what is CSRD? For the companies that are located in the European Union doing business here, this is a big topic. First of all, of course, for the ones that are large enterprises, but it's also now becoming more and more relevant for the mid-sized companies. So the European Union basically decided that they want to really establish a common sustainability reporting, so that this is something next to the financial reporting, and to standardize how sustainability disclosure is taking place, and to really make reporting on sustainability within companies comparable, so that you can actually compare how the different companies are performing. And this is something which has been approved, which has been transformed into local law, and it is very extensive. So focusing on areas of environmental, social, and governance. And I don't want to go into all the details, but basically, as the CSRD is right now, companies need to report on more than 1,000 data points, which of course is a lot, because that is at the end product, so to say, that you need to provide. And with that, of course, much more is connected. As you can see down below, I have this sentence saying Omnibus is under discussion and can change the requirements. I put that in red because so much is going on, and I know, and we know, Omnibus has been rejected. But what is now the current state of CSRD and the ESRS? Well, this is something that we should probably ask to Brussels, what actually is now taking place. It's under huge discussion, and in the last days there were multiple proposals that were also discussed, that were brought up and then also turned down again. I think, like everyone else, we need to see what eventually will come out. It's another example where, let's say, the idea and the concept is well thought, of course, putting quite some pressure on companies. And now, so to say, there will need to be a middle ground somewhere, a compromise, to find how you can actually deal with that. If you look into more detail what CSRD is actually about, you need to look at the ESRS. So the ESRS is the one that actually turns the general concept of the CSRD into something meaningful on what to report on. And you will see here in this chart how this actually converts then into the individual areas, which you need to report. And a lot of that you need to report are quantitative, but also qualitative KPIs. And that is, of course, something which comes with, some very deep question into your data structures. And for all companies that up until that point basically were saying like, yeah, we have some external reports that we put also into our financial report where we have a few sentences on sustainability, or we make some extra report, but it's sufficient to basically work with some Excel files and so on and so on. So quite manual. These companies now start struggling because on the one hand, they are not structured and they do not have the processes in place to actually being able to comply with these regulations. And this is what I would like to talk with you about, how you can actually deal with that. So the big question is, how do companies now answer to these data requirements that come up from sustainability? And CSRD, what I just put in, is just one example of these regulations that companies are facing. So you can also look at EUDR requirements, CSRD, CBAM, digital product passport that is now coming up. Yeah, many regulations that all go into different areas. And the main aspect that companies are struggling with is that usually these companies are quite complex. So it's not this one location company that basically has one office and that's it, but you are usually looking at a group which is located in different countries, like here in that example in Italy, Spain, UK, and China, where they have different entities here. And then in each entity, you have different production sites, different locations. Yeah, you have somewhere a headquarter. And of course, all these entities have, first of all, their own local regulations that they need to comply with. But then at the end, the total group also needs to be able to report on group level according to these sustainability regulations. And that is where it becomes highly complex. On the one hand, you somehow need to be able to establish a common reporting structure, yeah, and also make sure that all these information are actually maintained and developed in the individual entity, in the individual location. And that is something where you really need to combine this and then formulate standards and have systems in place to automate. Because if you would like really, and that is of course, as you can see, a very simple example still, yeah. But if you would like to do this in a manual process, collecting this, sending around questionnaires, that can take quite a lot of FTE within your organization just to orchestrate this data collection process of, okay, give me this and that data point and this KPI and having questions back and so on, having this reviewed, yeah, and audit proof, that takes a while. So from that angle, companies now need to look at, well, where do we get that data from? And the good thing is, and that is why we are also talking about this at FINUG, is that the majority of data is actually already in your ERP system, yeah, and in your processes. Because if we look at, and I just took two examples in more detail, if you just look into the processes that a CSRD is actually touching, we can pick, for example, the plan to produce process, where you look at the BOM, the bill of materials, yeah, how much emissions have you produced per unit that you produce, yeah? So how much CO2 are you looking at? What about your waste? How do you deal with waste? How much recycling quote do you have? What is your energy consumption? Yeah, all this is already information that you need to have available for your CSRD report. Another process within your company is hire to retire. And here you're, of course, looking more into the social and the governance aspect. So at the end, from employee master data, yeah, looking at this, how many employees do you at all have? How is the compensation within your company? How do you push with regards to skills for ESG compliance, yeah, how do you deal with these training requirements? But then also going deeper into governance with regards to workplace safety. So how do you ensure that there are no incidents, and how many incidents do you have within your organization? Yeah. But of course, also these regular HR KPIs that you also need to most likely already report on, like gender, age, equality, and so on, all in your processes already covered. And this is, so to say, the good thing about it, that although you might not necessarily have each individual data point already available, the processes that deliver into these data points you will have already set up. And now the question is, how much standardized are these processes, and can you dig into these processes and get the data out? So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is that you need to look into your data landscape. Yeah. So what do you currently have available? And then really go in and map the individual sources that you have to the data points that you require. Yeah. With that, you can already identify where you have major gaps within your processes, or where you are perhaps also very much off from standard. Because on the other hand, you will perhaps be able to identify these data points, but only with a lot of manual efforts. And usually, if you have done, for example, an S/4HANA transformation and already worked also on best practice processes, in many parts, this is something that you can directly derive from the standard processes. So this is already then going into step 2. Yeah, so you need to identify and set your reporting scope. Yeah, doing your double materiality assessment, you will define which KPIs you need to report on, and then you will compare towards your as-is landscape. Well, these are the data points that I already have. And for sure, what you need to do is do not only look at what you are currently facing. So that is something that I'm discussing many times with customers, is that they look at the as-is problem statement, like, I need to report now on CSRD, where there are more regulations that are basically at the brink of getting into place for you, yeah, like CSRD, perhaps CBAM starting now, EUDR, well, question mark, digital product pass I already mentioned. So all these regulations are already coming up. And when you think about how to manage your data, your sustainability data within your processes, you should already encounter for these upcoming regulations. Of course, you cannot go down now to the individual data point level to say, well, this is exactly the information that I need. But the overall broader scope, which you will require, you can already identify. Yeah. And this is something that you definitely need to touch on. And when you have performed these 2 steps, you're then able to implement a data foundation. Yeah, so that you create a generic data foundation that can serve various sustainability regulations, various sustainability requests also from internal stakeholders or from your customers, so that you do not necessarily only react from now on as before to individual requests on a case-by-case level, but then are actually able to act, yeah, and prepare upfront, have some generic platform, and from there you derive the individual data points that are necessary. And how this can look like, I've sketched here. So what you see here is just a high-level architecture of how such a data foundation can look like in an overall architecture. You first of all need to identify your data sources, your ecosystem. Yeah, and you will have different source systems. You will have SAP cloud systems, yeah, like your S/4HANA cloud system, your success factors, other cloud applications that you have. You might still have on-premise SAP landscape. Perhaps you're still on ECC, SAP ECC, or you are not yet on RISE or GROW with SAP, but with an S/4HANA on-premise system. Many customers are still having BW systems in place where they put in all relevant data for reporting purposes. This is, of course, something which is gold standard data, yeah, but you also need to address this. And then, for sure, let's all be honest, it's not only SAP, of course, they all want us to be only SAP, but the truth is there's so much more outside, which SAP is not covering today, and will also not cover in the future. So many other systems, CRM system, HR system, manufacturing systems, yeah, then all these data lakes, data lake houses, and so on, which you have perhaps also for product carbon footprint calculations. You have your own software already in place, yeah? And all of this, of course, needs to be your input to your data foundation, yeah? And that is where you create basically different data layers where you also deliver into and create relevant data products so that at the end, your consumers, and these might be different ones, it's the regulation, it's your customers, it's internal stakeholders, it's planning, yeah, you want also to improve on your sustainability aspects, you want to be cost efficient, operationally efficient, yeah. They all source from this data foundation and take the relevant. This is, so to say, the overarching idea of a data foundation. So to create something where you, in ideal case, do not even need to replicate data into, especially if you are in cloud systems, you will be able to virtually address this data in your data foundation, create the data products, and then push this out to the recipient. Now, of course, the question is, well, how do you do that? In theory, sounds all pretty logical, but what is now the way to actually put this into real life? And SAP has an answer since late February this year, and this is SAP Business Data Cloud. And now I would like to talk a bit about more how SAP Business Data Cloud actually pays into this and why it brings more than just this aspect of a data foundation in, and why the data foundation, on the other hand, is also more than just for sustainability, but for so much more. So if we just look at the evolution of BI systems and data systems in the last 20, 30 years, yeah, you will see we have come a very far way. Yeah, it all started with BW in late 90s, yeah. Then we had this evolutionary step of BW for HANA, which of course brought more speed to the overall thing. But still, the problem was that you had all data replicated into one system, yeah, and it was and is, let's not talk in the past, it's still the case, it is only SAP data in most cases, yeah. Bringing in non-SAP data into your BW system, not that easy. So with that system up until that point, SAP basically said like, hey, yeah, we do not care too much about the non-SAP world. And for sure, we know it exists, but we pretend not to know really in detail. Which of course led to the conclusion for customers, well, if SAP is not allowing us to bring in external data, we take out SAP data and take it to somewhere where we can do the necessary. And that was the point where SAP actually started this road to Business Data Cloud, because they introduced SAP Data Warehouse Cloud, which was at first really just a data warehouse in the cloud, but then it quickly evolved into SAP DataSphere, where suddenly you had this open system to really share, to get virtual access to data, to have a data marketplace, so that you can buy in data and also share with others. And now this final evolutionary step is SAP's Business Data Cloud, where you suddenly are able to really get all data in. And if you have seen the latest news, SAP, I think, has done a great job in creating partnerships with Google, Databricks, we all know, of course, Snowflake, but also Microsoft. It's fantastic. Now we really see that SAP has understood, well, bring all that data together has a huge value. And that is what we are all looking for, because, and again, nothing new that I tell to you, we are all looking for this data because we want to push AI. And now AI is nothing new. It's a hype theme since 1 or 2 years. But actually it's not new. We started with that already very early. With mathematical algorithms and so on. Then we had machine learning. And now we move from this Gen AI aspect into agentic AI, where we suddenly have a virtual assistant, an employee in our organization that can do jobs instead us doing them. But of course, as for anyone, to do your job right, you need to have the data to do that in the correct way. And that is where we run now, so to say, into a gap. Because in most cases, our data is not in good quality shape. Look at just your master data. I would assume most of us have not master data in such a shape as it should be and that we would wish for. And then it comes down to transactional data, which again is siloed. A lot of this transactional data is perhaps somewhere in Excel files. Well, how shall AI now work on activities, on tasks, if it does not have that data all at hand? And another big aspect, and that is where also Business Data Cloud answers to, is it's not only having that data in place, but you need to put that in relation to each other. How can we now derive, how do we now understand the business context of what is actually needed? How can I now connect a purchase order to a supplier or to the payment history? And that is where the knowledge graph from SAP comes into place. SAP has this background understanding and knowledge really to connect all these data points that they have available in their cloud systems, and make this available to AI. And of course, with AI, we then have the chance to really work on the different areas like spend management, finance, HR, and have these individual AI agents in place so they can support us. So you see, having such a data foundation, like in Business Data Cloud available, opens up a new world to you. It's not only this mandatory regulation and reporting in place, but it also gives you the capability to run AI. And with AI, more comes, because suddenly you have a scalable data platform and you can work with intelligent apps. And intelligent apps is also something SAP introduced fresh beginning of this year together with Business Data Cloud, where they say, hey, we deliver to you the necessary content so that you do not need to build that by yourself, but actually can focus on using it. And this is something that SAP, and now we make the turn back to the sustainability aspect, where SAP is, of course, also thinking into sustainability, because here we also have big aspects. If you monitor the news closely, you will have seen that SAP announced the SAP Sustainability Control Tower as an intelligent app for SAP Business Data Cloud. And we will come to that now, how the Sustainability Control Tower delivers into CSRD. But that is, of course, now this transition, right? SAP has understood sustainability cannot work without data. So we actually bring the regulatory reporting to the data, integrate it very closely, ship and deliver this to our customers as a bundle, and suddenly you're able to very fast and proactively do all relevant reporting. Having said this, the SAP Sustainability Control Tower is SAP's go-to tool for regulatory reporting. Yeah, it already, and we will come to that, ships mandatory reporting functionality so that you can create your ESG report. It has this audit proof in place so that you can actually also show to your auditors how you created this ESG report. Yeah, so all the metrics in place. It comes with predefined data models. Here we come again. Yeah, data models. So actually connecting back to this data foundation of how do I support now these metrics. Yeah, it already brings this out of the box. And then, and again, here we have the AI context. It also supports you into the report generation, because the CSRD reports, they are very lengthy, right? It can take a lot of time or external support to create such reports. If you now have an AI at your hand that supports you in writing the relevant text on your KPIs, it will improve your life significantly. Yeah. So how does that now look like in total? The Sustainability Control Tower really works as a holistic steering and reporting platform with a focus of driving your zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality initiatives. So basically paying into your ESG targets and connecting with all your SAP landscape. And as it will become part of SAP Business Data Cloud, it also connects to your non-SAP landscape, which of course is exactly what you are looking for. Yeah, because again, still a lot of your data will be outside of SAP, and still you need to report on this. So in a landscape, how will that now work? Well, as said, yeah, the SCT will become a part of the Business Data Cloud as an intelligent application. So it will be pushed by SAP with all relevant data products in place that directly connect to your SAP applications. You can, of course, also build your own custom data products within Business Data Cloud for anything that is not out of the box available, or for any non-SAP data sources. And then you have the SCT, the Sustainability Control Tower, as the front layer to do your reporting. Yeah, it comes with your standard well-known Fiori front end. Yeah, and from there you can basically run everything. You can also really go back to the individual data point from your source system to prove to your auditors how you come to these numbers, and then share this with other reporting platforms. Yeah. So for example, if you say, hey, for me, the analytics in the Sustainability Control Tower is not sufficient. Well, go into the Analytics Cloud. Here you have all dashboarding functionality that you need. You say, okay, reporting is one thing, but how do we now simulate our target achievement? How do we now forecast how we want to improve, how our actions pay into our targets? Again, the sustainability, the Analytics Cloud will be the go-to tool to take your actual data from the Sustainability Control Tower, to take your target data from, and then you can really plan in your actions to achieve these targets. And for sure, as the Business Data Cloud is a very open platform, it is also able to share all this information with third-party applications. Yeah, so it's not anymore like before that you're basically carved in to SAP world, but you can actually share this with others. If you're now looking at, well, how does this now all add up in a sustainability context? And I know SAP has many applications out there, but it also kind of makes sense that you have like a Lego toolbox where you can add up the individual bricks for what you need. This is the go-to slide, so to say, to explain it to you. The core, and it will always be, is for sure your ERP system with your S/4HANA Cloud. Yeah, this is where the majority of sustainability information is in place, and where, for example, also the environmental health and safety module will also be part of, to really monitor, for example, your waste management, your incident management, your product compliance, yeah, everything with regards to REACH and so on. Yeah, this is key and crucial. If you're now looking into transparency in your supply chain, like for example for the European Deforestation Regulation, then you look into SAP Green Token. This is a tool that connects to your S/4HANA system. It's a public cloud solution and actually is able to create tokens on your transactions within your supply chain, also with your partners, and really create this transparency so that you can say where that one came from and give any supporting documentation. Looking into carbon emission handling, well, first of all, you can use your SAP Green Ledger. This is a go-to tool to really see, well, what goods have I bought, what carbon emissions are associated with that. So everything of your scope 1, it's all in here. Yeah, so you basically have the same ledger system as you have today for your financial ledger. You then have a carbon ledger and can also go down to profit centers, cost centers to really see how your balance is doing there. This, of course, plays together with the corporate carbon footprint and your product carbon footprint, which you would calculate in the SAP Sustainability Footprint Management. So here you really calculate these individual footprints, can go down to an individual product level, can also model your energy flows. So how much energy consumption do you have in your individual production steps, in your warehouses, in your transportation, and so on and so on. You can put this all in and also receive data from your partners via the SDX, the Sustainability Data Exchange tool, which really delivers input parameters so that you do not need to take assumptions, but actually can take primary data. Yeah. All of this will feed into your Business Data Cloud or directly into the SAP Sustainability Control Tower so that you can really use this to have a full reporting in place. Yeah. I know it's quite a lot, but actually I hope you see how these solutions play into each other. There are, of course, other solutions like RDP from SAP, Responsible Design and Production, which is then already having a focus on recycling and so on, yeah, which is also getting more and more important over the next years until 2030, yeah. But I left that out to keep, so to say, for the main regulations now a focus on. Yes, Sustainability Control Tower, just a few screenshots also to get an idea, well, how that really, or how you can benefit from it. Well, here what you see is that you can really easily capture and import relevant data that you need, for example, for your emission handling, for your energy handling, yeah, incidents on corruption, yeah. You can really import these, see also when the last time there has been an update to it, and this then directly feeds into your CSRD report. This, of course, is something, the CSRD report, which also is, if you start from scratch without any template, it's quite troublesome to build this up by yourself. So that is why SAP is shipping out of the box structures that you can already use. Yeah. So you already have definitions of the individual metrics. Yeah. And you can then put in your numbers, have more context to it. Yeah. So you can really deliver into this. And then you also have, just as an example, you have analytics in place so that you can also see how your metrics and KPIs really perform over time and how you also perform with regards to your ambition target. Yeah, as said, it might be something where you say, well, we would look for more, but I think it already gives you a very good indication where you are heading to. And this is, of course, something which you also need to explain in your CSRD report, how you are actually performing and what you do to achieve your sustainability targets. Having said this, I come to the end of my webinar, and I would be very happy to now receive your questions and discuss a bit more about how to set up such data foundation.
Thanks, Mark. Quite exciting, isn't it? Happy to see there's a solution and best practice for these complex regulations and reporting requirements. I hope you agree.
Yeah.
To questions, audience, feel free to post on Q&A. We have 2 already. And meanwhile, we are discussing about these. Feel free to post more. Okay, Mark. First, how to set up and approach the data foundation, both process and tech aspects, ? You discussed about these topics briefly already, but please elaborate. Yes.
As said, I think the crucial aspect is to understand where you are already with your architecture and your system landscape, because it's not, of course, that these regulations come out of nowhere from yesterday to today, and now you need to answer this. So it has already evolved over time, right? You have built up some reporting structures. Many times it's quite manual, that you have set up some Excel, some SQL databases, something to capture requests from before. Yeah, so this will be somewhere already, the data will be somewhere already in your system. Some data perhaps you will really need to start fresh gathering, but the majority you will have somewhere. Now the question is where to find this and how also to optimize these processes. Because for me, as a process person, for me, it's also important not only then to just receive that information, but then also to have a lean process in place that really supports this on a continuous base, so that it is not a huge exercise once in a year to create this CSRD report, but you ideally could do this every month, yeah, and it pretty much just drops out this report, and you have all the data pipelines in place that just suck out the data from your processes. So you need to understand what systems do you have, where do you also have very manual steps where people interaction is needed to download data, extract data, transform data, and so on, and then see how can you replace this? Where do you perhaps can go back to a standard process? Where do you have built over time also in your SAP manual transactions, which you can build back into a standard so that you can also, for example, then use SAP data products, yeah, to really retrieve that information without any further burden. And this analysis, I think, is crucial to understand where you are today and to find these gaps, how you can improve so that you can build then on top of this the data foundation.
Okay. If you know what you're doing, and I guess you know, what is the magnitude of effort needed to approach this? Is it easy or complex? Is it time consuming?
It is. It can be time consuming, yes, because at the end, such regulation like CSRD is aiming to really gather information across your whole organization.
Yeah.
So touching pretty much everything, yeah, to some extent. So you will, if you do not have all your requirements in place, yeah, and know exactly also what you are reporting today, you will need to talk to quite a lot of people within your organization to understand also how they today deliver to you information. So what sources do they actually use? Yeah, you will not know. How do they come to that, and how much manual effort do they put into creating such data points? Yeah. So, and this can be quite, let's say, a time consuming task. It's not very complex. It can be complex if you also then need to take into consideration customer and other stakeholder information requirements. Yeah. But this is something that you really need to do. And let's say how much. It depends on company size and complexity for sure, but I would say somewhere between 3 to 6 months for the analysis to really know exactly what you are looking at, you should consider.
Okay, thanks for the insights. Second, if multiple/integrated data foundations, what's your guidance?
I would always go for an integrated data foundation because at the end, if we have now multiple data foundations, it's just bigger than what we had before with our multiple databases. Yeah, a database is already like a very small data foundation, and ideally, we have one integrated, as much as possible, complete data foundation that anyone within your organization can really address, take data from to answer their individual data needs. And just imagine, you from sustainability perspective might be very much interested into supplier information. Which suppliers do we have? What is the risk score and so on? But that information is not only relevant to you from a sustainability perspective, right? Your procurement team is working exactly with the same information. Finance looks at it from, well, how is which suppliers are our most critical ones? Where do we pay most to? Legal perhaps looks into, well, where do we have contracts that we should revisit because we have such a big volume, and then talk to procurement also. So it's not that these individual data points just belong to this very one department. Ideally, you have this integrated because then the one looking at, for example, the supplier can have the multiple facets of the information of a supplier connected to it. Yeah. So also to procurement, it's quite interesting to, or very important to see what you need to report from a sustainability perspective. The risk score was perhaps something not so important before for procurement. Now it's something that has suddenly become extremely important to consider. And perhaps you also decide, and that is what we see nowadays, right? Look at global politics, that suddenly you start thinking, well, do I actually get my products from the United States? Is that really a safe place to order from? What about tariffs? Do I really want to establish such business connection? Just as an example, yeah. But this is something where these different views on data become very crucial, and that is why separated data foundations do not really make sense.
Yeah. Okay. More questions?
Feel free to type if there is any questions. Thank you also on my behalf, Mark, for the interesting presentation. A lot of new information for me as well. And thank you. And we still get to share the presentation materials with everybody, right?
We will do that. Yes. And of course, happy to connect, especially happy to connect with Mark, the specialist of this topic, and continue any discussions. And especially if you have any concerns or any other questions, please reach out.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you for everybody for being with us, and thanks for the questions and comments. And thanks once more again, Mark and Aki. And we will continue with Westernacher, like Aki said, in February next year. So stay tuned for that.
Looking forward. Yes. Thanks, everyone. And have a nice
day.
Have a good day.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.